Welcome to They Live by Film, a platform dedicated to bringing you film discussion and interviews from around the world. I'm Adam Lundy, and I'm joined for our 100th episode by my co hosts, Chris Haskell and Zach Bryant. Hello, guys.
We made
Hello.
it.
100 is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, can't really believe it kind of came about. I was trying to figure out how long we've been doing this. And, it's been like well over 2 years at this stage, right?
December
That was
10th, 2020 was when the first episode released.
10,
yeah,
20.
that was the
Wow.
craziest thing for me because that was like middle of the pandemic, like right
Yeah.
in the heart of it.
And I don't know if you guys remember, I was not there for the first episode.
No, that's true.
Yeah,
Yeah, the first
I was
episode.
not there.
You were part of it, to be fair. So I'm going to give a bit of a history lesson, I suppose, for listeners. What the if you kind of jumped on late and the podcast has kind of mutated and changed, since its first iteration and to where we are now. And we have no plans to kind of change the format anytime soon. So what we have now is pretty much what we have going forward. But this podcast started really, as Chris said, kind of in the middle of the pandemic. But before we were a podcast, it was a film club on Reddit. So right in the right when COVID was really starting to shut places down, I think it would have been like May or June of 2020. There was an idea floated around on the Criterion subreddit about starting an online film club. And I messaged the person that kind of made the original post, and I was like, "Hey, I'm happy to kind of help you do this. We can set up a Discord." And we just kind of came up with the idea of how we'd run the film club, doing it with polls, and whoever was in the club kind of rotate their picks every week and stuff like that. And that person helped me set it up, and then immediately dipped after 1 week. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just take the reins here. The one of the first people to jump on board was Zach. Zach was like one of the very much day one OG people in the film club when we had 5 or 6 people join on that first day. And that first week we watched Chungking Express. And we just kind of grew over the summer. More and more people started to join. Eventually Chris joined. And, we were watching a lot of films and it was really cool. But the problem I was having, was it's all well and good, just sort of typing messages or, leaving posts and, leaving comments on posts about films and stuff. But I wanted to actually talk to people about the movies that we were watching and just about movies in general.
yeah.
I didn't really have anyone in like my personal life that was as interested in film as I was. So I kind of floated out the idea that I was interested in doing a film podcast. And, if anyone else was interested in doing it, it would be like super casual. We just talk about the films that we're watching in the film club, no extra homework required. And, Chris and Zach jumped on board. I think we had our first like Skype or Discord call maybe in like October or November of that year, just to kind of hash out what we wanted to talk about on the podcast. And then we did our first episode like a week or two later. But the way the timing was, Zach wasn't actually there. So if you are an OG listener, you'll remember the first episode was just me and Chris, but Zach was still very much part of the project. He just personally couldn't be on for that episode, which was ironically an episode where we watched a French New Wave film. So maybe he was just lying. Maybe he was lying about his unavailability. I guess.
And at that time, he had 2 or 3 podcasts that he was a part of as well.
Yes,
That's
yes.
true,
I was.
Zach,
I,
yeah.
I had another podcast at that point. Yes.
Yeah.
That's
With the world's largest VHS collection, at least unofficially.
It might be. Yeah. It's with it was a podcast called Video Carnage. There are still episodes online. There aren't many. We ended up having to cut it short, and then we're on kind of a extremely long hiatus. My co-host Andy sort of had some personal issues where essentially the foundation of his house started to crack. It had to be completely tore down, and he could not record within an apartment building. Because he's got 2 kids, he's got like 3 animals and his wife, and it's just like, no, it's just not going to work. There's no way. So he just recently got back into his house finally. So that may happen again. But if you're interested in something else where I just talk about much different movies than we talk about here sometimes, then that's still there somewhere.
Wait, can I, since tangents are kind of a part of our DNA, can I tell a really quick crazy story about about foundation issues?
It would
Yeah,
not
go
be an
for it.
episode of They Live by Film without a weird tangent story.
So we sold, okay, we back in 2008, we were looking to buy a place. And back then in Austin, you could find a place with a normal human salary. You didn't have to have an executive salary to buy a home in Austin. Um, and so we bought this place in a brand new building downtown, that basically it's kind of a longer story. The guy foreclosed, so it was even cheaper than usual. But anyways, so we got in this building and we actually never lived there. We didn't intend to have it be an investing property, but we just had a tenant and we kind of kept having tenants. So they were paying for it. So we just kind of kept having tenants, right? So we sold it this year because it was getting too expensive to own unless we were going to try to move in. And it was too small now because it's like 1 bedroom. You don't do square feet in Ireland, right? You do square meters for house size.
No, square feet as well.
Oh,
They
okay, okay.
actually
So
kept the imperial measurement for something.
Yeah,
nice. I know,
square
right? So
feet.
it was like the whole thing was like 720 square feet, 1 bedroom. So, it was not we're gonna have a kid in there, right? So we sold it. A month after we sell it, we find out that they had a special group come out and take a look because a 435 unit condo building, it's 45 stories. At the time, it was the tallest building west of the Mississippi, I guess, when it was built, although that's not true anymore, has foundation issues. And so they're going to have to conduct a year-long survey to figure out what to do with this massive building. And like, how do you fix the foundation of a building like that? So anyways, it's kind of it's wild to kind of watch what's happened. So the study should be done actually right about now. Um, so we'll see what they end up doing.
And honestly, like that's one of my biggest like worries where we're in the process of like starting to talk about getting out of rentals and actually owning a home. It's
Mhm.
like I'm just scared to death that it's like, oh, there's the foundation, oh, the roof's messed up, and it's like, oh, there's $200,000 like gone forever.
Right. Yeah, luckily it doesn't happen all the time, but I mean, it is the fear of ownership for sure. I
Yeah.
get that. Anyways, Adam, so one
Yeah.
question I had before we keep going, are we called sectogenarians now? What's the name for being 100 years old?
Centurions, right?
No,
Centurions?
centurions? Is that what you would say? That sounds like a
Cent
transformer thing.
Centurions or Centurions or something.
Wasn't that a really terrible movie?
I have no idea. Who knows? Yeah, like as we were saying with the podcast, kind of how it started. Obviously, again, listeners who've been around with us since the start will know all of our picks. They were kind of a bit erratic because we were going on what was on the film club that week. So we'd be merging like two completely random films together, and we'd have to try and weave it together in a reasonable way. And then we kind of got lucky a couple of months into the podcast. We said, maybe we should start trying to get some special guests or do some interviews. And Chris reached out to Craig and Dennis from Deaf Crocodile just as they were like starting to begin their label. Obviously, they're two hugely connected people. They've been in the business for a long time, but this was they were starting their new venture, Deaf Crocodile. And we couldn't believe that they said yes to us. It was a huge kind of watershed moment for the podcast when we realized that maybe we can talk to these people. We've been talking about physical media, talking about films. Like, let's actually talk to the people behind all this stuff to sort of get their history, get their background, learn about the craft, learn about the business. And obviously, as listeners know, it's become a very much a cornerstone of our podcast. Yes, we do these episodes where there's three of us here talking about some movies, but our interviews are just as important. They get just as much listens. Sometimes they get way more listens than a normal episode. So we're obviously going to be continuing that going forward. That's a huge part of our identity as a podcast. We have some interviews, lined up already for the rest of the year, including one that we're trying to schedule right now that I'm incredibly excited for. We can't wait to kind of bring that out, hopefully later on this year. And obviously things just kind of mutated then. We started getting less inclined to wanting to follow what was going on in the film club and kind of have our own identity. And we started maybe picking one film club film and then choosing a film to go alongside of it. And then eventually we just kind of shed that to the format that we have now, where the three of us are just taking turns. And I like it a lot this way. Like we've seen a lot crazier movies since we switched the format to what we have it now. Because we kind of get to bring out our own personality a little bit. We're not shackled by what's going on in the film club. You know, if we want to watch a film about a fucking battle heater, we can do that now, which I don't think we could have done before. So that's
I
the
think
brief.
it would have ended up on the Criterion channel eventually. You just wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, with some of the sometimes with some of the stuff they put on with their programs, you never know.
I mean, episode 2 was Revengeance.
Well, yeah, that's that exactly. So yeah, that's a brief history of the podcast. If you've been around with us since day one, you're awesome. I hope you keep enjoying our podcast for a long time. If you're more of a newer listener and you like what you're listening to, then please stick around. This is obviously not going to be a normal episode. This is a 100th episode special, so we're not going to be talking about the movies that Zach would have picked last time around. So those Friedkin movies are going to be coming out probably in a few weeks after you're hearing this right now, because as you're listening to this, I will probably be on a beach in the south of France enjoying my honeymoon. So we're not going to be obviously recording an episode around then. So it's going to be a few weeks when you're hearing, but we'll have the gaps filled one way or another anyway. But what we will do to start off is we'll just talk about anything you guys want to give a shout out to that you've seen recently.
Wait, so check it out.
Recently?
Check it out. Can I have actually, you know how we always say, let us know if you listen, like reach out if you listen, all that kind of stuff. So I actually want to give 2 quick shout outs to people that have done that in the last 2 weeks or so. So if it's okay, so I hope you're listening to this, Antium from Finland, username Antium. I hope that's not your birth name and I'm giving your identity away. I don't think that's true. And then Purple Star Zone on these are both their Reddit usernames, but just huge thank you for listening, and everybody else who has not yet identified themselves, please do. It's super fun to actually talk to y'all. And Adam Danbury is the other user. I knew there was 3. Adam Danbury is the other one. So for the 3 of y'all there, thank you so much for actually reaching out. I love it.
Yeah, that's probably like, because we have such a disconnect, which I know we're attempting to solve a little bit of that from a lot of our listen base. Yeah. So it always is like really cool to see if when you like randomly stumble on Reddit, somebody who brings up the podcast. We very much appreciate that a ton.
Oh yeah,
it's great. It makes it worth it.
It's always nice to see, especially obviously Chris usually posts the interviews that we do on the Boutique Blu-ray subreddit. We normally get really nice feedback on there. So if you're someone from the Boutique Blu-ray community on Reddit, then thank you for all the feedback you've given us over the years with whenever we've sort of posted our interviews and stuff. So it's great. As we said, we obviously would love to hear from our listeners a lot more. We're obviously a very small community anyway. There's we're talking about a couple of hundred people at best listen to our podcast every week, but we're grateful for every single one of you guys that are listening. So please do reach out, whether it's through Reddit or obviously we have our letterbox accounts posted. You can comment on our reviews sometime or something. We have the YouTube channel, so you can come and comment on our YouTube videos too, which we're going to try and put out more of over the summer as well. So it's a huge thank you to everyone who's actually listening to this. It's kind of like, don't think any of us really expected this to kind of grow the way it did. When we started out, we were just kind of using this as an outlet, going crazy over COVID like most people were. We just wanted to have an outlet. So the fact that people actually want to listen to us, rant about, shit movies sometimes, or rant about how good certain movies are. It's just, it's kind of crazy even still today, 2.5 years later.
Definitely. And there's go ahead, Zach.
No, I was just gonna say when we were talking about the timeline thing, talking about a lot of our listen base. I didn't realize how early we had had Justin the Liberty on for Vinegar Syndrome, which was like episode 15.
Almost 2 years ago to the day.
Yeah, it's kind of wild because I know we got quite a bit from that, which is very thankful that he came to talk to a very, very small podcast at the time. So that's great.
Yeah. Well, and the crazy thing was he referenced this idea that he had of bringing partner labels onto Vinegar Syndrome. So think about
Yes,
how
yeah, that's
think
right.
about
Yeah.
how think about how crazy that is, like what OCN distribution has become. Um, but at that time it was just AGFA, and he was like, "Yeah, we'll probably bring on some more." Now they're now they're up to 23 with 17 titles dropping on July 1st.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say, now there's like literally dozens of stuff they bring out every month from partner
Yeah,
labels. So
it's crazy.
it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
And even like, like again, we talk about Deaf Crocodile, all the releases they've done since we met them and they weren't even started yet. Or, even like a more recent example, we had Fran from Radiance, at the end of last year. Again, before the first titles had even launched. And now, Radiance is a huge splash in the community. It's been a real fresh air, breath of fresh air within the sort of boutique Blu-ray sort of community. So yeah, like obviously again, we thanked our fans and our listeners, but thanks to everyone who's actually come on to us, who's taken time out of their very, very busy lives to come and talk to what is essentially an amateur podcast. We do this for free. We don't get any money from this podcast. Anyone that we do an interview for, it's not a paid promotion. We're not getting paid to advertise these people. They're coming on to talk about themselves, and we are here because we are interested in listening to them. So we do not make any money from this podcast at all. We're here for the love of film. So we are grateful to everyone who listens to us, but also the people who take time out of their busy days to come and talk to us about film as well.
And
Yeah.
it's changed a lot, like even the interviews, because it used to be our collection corner, because we do things different, even that, because we used to do any other business and a collection corner, and then a lot of times our collection
Right.
corner would end up being interviews unless they
Yeah.
were an hour long, like Justin Liberty or anybody from Arrow or anything like that. It was a little bit different. I'm trying to actually look at the nice little thing Chris made and see if I can figure out when we stopped doing interviews within episodes.
I think we did it all the way through 2021, I think, if I
Yeah, it looks like
remember right.
Crescendo House may have been the last one,
Yeah.
which we did with Nightmare Alley and the Life and Death of Colonel Blimp. Yeah, we used to have some strange things put together.
Yeah, because we did the George Eastman Museum was early in January, and I think from there on we haven't done the two tied together. One thing I will say, just by the way of kind of teaser, is, and I really hope this happens now that I'm teasing it, but I'm really excited about one that is confirmed, and hopefully two that we're working hard on, of a giveaway with a boutique label that people love. It's going to be really fun. The one that's confirmed, it's going to be like a whole night live in partnership with the Disconnected, where we're going to be on. And I don't want to say too much because I don't know how much Ryan wants to give away, if in case there's joint listeners. But it's going to be a really fun night, and it's going to end in a big giveaway, from both from us as well as from the label. And so even being a part of the community like that, where we could orchestrate an event like that, if not two, is just very humbling. I don't know. It's like it's crazy to me that it's just sort of like we can kind of piece this together and get a label engaged. And so, anyways, yeah, that was, hopefully that's a fun little teaser, but also as a way of just saying how far we've come. Yeah, it feels good.
Cool. On that note, anyone want to give a shout out to something they've watched or bought in the last week since we spoke last?
I do. I'm going to keep it really short, just because I haven't seen quite as much as I did last week. Thankfully, I slowed down a bit, but I really wanted to give a shout out for a couple new things I watched. One was Air. I don't know if this reference will mean quite as much to Adam. I don't know. Do you guys do standardized testing there? Is that just really an American thing?
We don't do standardized testing. That we do have state exams as part of school, but not in the same kind of way that you guys would have it.
Okay, because the reason I was going to say that is because the only way I know to describe Air, which I really liked, it's a great movie, especially if you like basketball. It's obviously written by people who know what basketball is, and that doesn't feel like just complete BS throughout it. But it's about the creation of the Air Jordan shoe.
Mhm.
really good, but it reminds me of those movies you'd watch after standardized testing was over and teachers were like, yeah, this is relevant somehow. We will watch this 10 times throughout your high school career.
I'm trying to think of that was Romeo and Juliet was one of those for me. The
Remember the Titan was ours. Like,
oh,
God, I've
okay.
seen Remember the Titan so many times.
Yeah, I
Uh,
remember Romeo and Juliet. I always felt like because there's just like a brief flash of breast, right?
are you talking about
It's
like
not,
the old
yeah,
60s
yeah,
one?
the 60s one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's like this brief flash of breast, and I remember just feeling like I had somehow like won the lottery that we were doing this in school.
And then you
Uh,
look back and you're like, oh, she's 15. And then you feel real bad.
yeah, yeah, that's so true. Because at the time I was
And then
probably
you
the
didn't
same
have to
age,
because
right?
you were probably the same age.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. I haven't seen that since middle school, maybe. So I was even younger. So she would have
Yeah.
been an old woman to me then. But yeah, that's true. I haven't seen that. Yeah, they were weird with what was the other one that, speaking of boutique labels, Fun City put out called Billitus. Um, so people have weird fascinations with young women. We don't have to get into that in this episode.
It seems
I
like a
do.
whole can of worms to get into our 100th
Yeah,
episode.
how about we not start there?
If
I
you
do
want to,
want.
I think if somebody's actually interested in our thoughts, I think we did an episode where we had to talk about that with Valerie and her Week of
I was
Wonders.
about to say, if people are more interested in our thoughts on the exploitation of young girls in cinema, listen to the Valerie and our Week of Wonders episode.
Episode 61, in case anybody wants to find that one. I
There
just
you go.
um
Yeah.
but that's the way I would describe that one. And the other one, which I really want to shout out because it's so unique, it has such a great like little genre switch, which is Polite Society, which came out this year. I actually think both of you guys would like it. I think it'd be good overlap for y'all. It's essentially like, I don't want to call it magical realism because I really don't tend to like that, but it's definitely has like this small bit of fantastical element to it, to where it has grounded stuff and then it has like this wuxia like type thing going on. Basically, it's this girl who wants to be like a stunt woman, and her sister is getting married. She believes that the guy who she's going to marry is terrible and a horrible human being, and she wants to expose that by trying to basically be a martial artist. Um, Really cool movie, very stylist. I would compare it, I guess. I've seen people compare it to Tarantino. It is not Tarantino at all. If you're going to compare it to something even close, it would be like Edgar Wright with the way the editing style is and stuff. It's on Peacock in the US. I don't know if it's in Ireland yet or not, but I think y'all would actually both enjoy that one.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I have a movie. Let's see if when that comes to streaming, let's see if we can do a double episode because I have a movie that would pair really well with that.
I'm
Um,
curious what it is. What movie is it?
I'm trying to look up the title. It's something very similar to Lisa and the Fox Fairy.
You just named a movie I've never even heard of.
Yeah. It's I think it's Hungarian movie or Romanian. I'm so sorry for the creators of that if I have the name slightly wrong and also the country wrong, but it's uh is it in the Fox Fairy? Anyways, I don't want to take up too much time to find the name, but it's very similar to that. Um, and it has some magical realism, like you said, and it has some Japanese stuff in there as well. Oh, Liza the Fox Fairy. There you go.
Okay,
And
I
it,
will have to
yeah,
look that up.
yeah. It's good. It's really good. Um, by the household name of Karoli Misaros.
Oh, yep, I found it. And yep,
makes
you're like the
makes
only person I have who's watched it
makes
on my
Zach say
letterbox.
the name.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm good.
Um,
You know what? I'll just for the 100th episode, I will try to say it. Let me look at this because I did not listen to how you pronounce that. Uh, Carol. Caroli is completely wrong, right? That's got to be wrong for first name.
I think you kind of focus where the little accent is, I think, but I have no idea.
Caroli?
Sure.
Sure. Uj, UJ, whatever that would be. Met Mizaros? Sure,
There we go.
that was 100% butchered, but there was my attempt.
Sorry, Carolee, if you're listening.
That's honestly been the best part about us not having to worry about film club. I feel like I have to pronounce stuff a lot less now.
Well, yeah, suspiciously, you always choose American movies now.
Yeah, I pick ones I can say.
Just wait till I do a week where we have to watch a pitch it pong. We're aesthetical movies, and
Oh,
Oh
good job on
no,
that.
I know which guy you're talking about because I look at his name and I get overwhelmed.
yeah, it's the Uncle Boone me in the past lives or whatever. That's the guy. Yeah.
I've been on a good run lately. Just, so you feel like sometimes because so much of what I watch is dictated by the labels that I buy from, because I'm just kind of asking them to curate my watch list, right? So I go through waves, but man, I've been lucky recently. First of all, have you all seen Mona Lisa, the '86 movie where Bob Hoskins plays a driver?
I
No,
have
actually, I
not.
know Criterion released it last year, I think, if I remember correctly, something like that.
Well, it's Spine 107, but maybe they
Oh,
re-released
maybe
it, maybe.
re-released it, maybe, yeah.
Wow, that movie's good. It's a Neil Jordan movie.
Hey, we've talked about Neil Jordan before.
Yeah, and his
Yeah.
name's gonna come up again on my least favorite list. But but he nails it here. I also think Bob Hoskins, I kind of have an actor crush on him. He can carry like three emotions at the same time, and just he has like an intensity, kind of like Peter Falk a little bit, but more intense. Really good movie. And then uh Yakuza Graveyard, which is Kenji Fukasaku, the guy that did all the Battles Without Honor and Humanity movies.
Okay.
He he did five of them, and then he did three called New Battles Without Honor and Humanity. And then a few months after the last one of those ended, he made Yakuza Graveyard with the same writer. So it very much feels like the ninth one in that series. But it's sort of is this weird combination of like everything that he does well. I loved it. I think I'm trying to figure out where I put it. If I was gonna rank those eight and slide this in somewhere, it's definitely in the top half. I don't know if it's awesome.
That's the one that
And
just
then
came out from Radiance Films, right? If
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
watched.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
was thinking that.
Radiance Spine 2, even
Ah,
though not
yes.
released to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'll just quickly say one more. Santo. So I finally saw my first Santo the Wrestler movie, uh, which it's just hilarious. Because imagine a Bond movie or that old TV show, The Saint, where Roger Moore used to play that kind of spy. But imagine that where they're running around with a luchador mask on the whole time, even when they're dressed up in a suit solving crime. It's
So it's not Nacho Libre.
no,
Oh,
no. It
hmm.
imagine if yeah, because Nacho Libre, you see his face, right? So it's like
Yes.
if he just never takes the mask off. There's this really like scintillating moment where he goes to take a shower and you see him unzip the back of his mask and set it up on top of the shower. And they like tease it in the same way they would tease a woman's body in like a softcore movie. They like tease that you're going to see his face. And then he turns the shower off but he comes with the mask back on.
I,
But
I wonder if that's any inspiration for the Mandalorian show because that's like a big part of that too. Is never they've showed his face because it's Pedro Pascal, but I know they like pick a lot of stuff from that era as like inspiration. So I'm
Well, I
kind of
think
curious if that
this
anything.
actually this actually is part of like luchador culture, though. This whole thing that like you're always wearing the mask.
Oh,
yeah,
Um,
okay.
it's like I don't know if you guys like watched like WWE and stuff. I watched it like a bit growing up, but they have one of the wrestlers,
I
Rey
was in the
Mysterio.
Attitude Era of WW. Well, it was WWF. That's when I watched
Okay,
it.
yeah. So I kind of watched it in the early 2000s. So like Rey Mysterio was one of like the big wrestlers in that period, and he went off the kind of luchador thing where like he never took off his mask.
okay, okay.
So I think that's just like part of luchador culture.
Yeah, well, it's hilarious to watch a spy movie with that. I had a great time. Uh, I
Did
couldn't.
Imprint put that
It's
out? Is that who put that one out?
no, no, no. So it's okay.
Indicator, right?
Well, there's two. So
Indicator.
Indicator put out a box of them, or at least two of them in a special package, hard slipcase or whatever. But this was a Vinegar Syndrome archive one. So the one I saw was called Santo versus Dr. Death, and
Okay.
it's VSA number 29. I wish I know that Vinegar Syndrome wants to support the video store so they don't stream a lot. But man, I wish they would stream some of these because like they're so fun to watch once at least. Um,
I
Yeah,
mean,
but
I wouldn't be surprised if one day we see a Vinegar Syndrome like streaming. I mean, Criterion's been successful with it.
oh, it's such a good revenue model too. Just even Massacre Video is teamed up with Unearthed, and they're starting one now.
Arrow's
Um,
got one.
mhm.
There's I think Shout Factory's technically got one, but I've never heard anybody who actually has it.
No, I mean Kino has like three, right? And
Yeah,
Troma has one. Charles Band has one.
yeah,
Uh,
full moon. Yeah.
yeah. So speaking of Charles Band, I'll just say this quickly, Adam, before I give you the mic here. The Enter the Video Store box set came out from Arrow. I think technically it comes out like in a week or so, but it's already shipped, so I got it. And it's cool that Arrow's putting out Charles Band stuff now. Because talk
They
about,
had Stellar Dweller was one in that, right?
yeah.
I saw that
Dolls,
like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, and then I saw a bunch of reviews. I'm like, what the hell? I just watched
yeah,
this on Tubi.
yeah, Cellar Dweller, Dolls, and the big one was Beastmaster. Um, so yeah, it's cool to see that they're his old production company called Empire,
Mhm.
and people go crazy for these movies. So it'll be interesting to see. Uh, I'm sorry, the Dungeon Master, not Beastmaster.
I was like,
Dolls,
man, I didn't know they had rights to it. That's why I was like, oh, okay.
no, the Dungeon Master, excuse me. Dolls, Cellar Dweller, and then Robot Jocks, and then Arena are the ones. But yeah, all these movies are just right up my alley. I can already tell just on the poster alone. Um, so
Have you watched Cellar Dweller yet?
no,
It's Don Mancini who created Child's Play, and he
yeah.
was the writer for that. So it's very interesting to kind of see how those ideas kind of developed later.
Oh, I'm sorry. You said Mancini. I was thinking Casarelli. Yeah. I got you. I got really excited if it was the Phantasm guy, but Don
Sorry,
Mancini
no,
from
it's the
Child's Play.
Child's Play guy.
Still cool though. That's a great horror series too. Yeah, Adam, what about you?
Yeah, mine's gonna be super quick. I watched a few films earlier in the week. And I kind of just like gave the reins over to Neve. I was like, here, let's just watch some movies and like you can pick them. Um, so like the first one, I wasn't too surprised when she said it. So we watched The Age of Innocence, Martin Scorsese film.
Mhm.
Um, it's it looks really nice and the acting's pretty good and stuff, but it's just kind of a bore. I'm not really a period guy. So I just, yeah, it just wasn't really my cup of tea. I can tell it's a well-made movie and stuff, but it just wasn't really for me, unfortunately. But the next two films I was pleasantly surprised with and were very much up my alley. The next day I said, okay, Neve, what are we going to watch tonight? And she goes, have you ever seen a film called Laura? And I said, oh, what's it about? And she goes, Gene Tierney stars a wait. You mean like Laura, like from 1944, the film noir classic, Laura? And she goes, yeah. I goes, well, yeah, of course I've seen that movie. I've seen it like 3 times. Let's watch that. Let's go.
Yeah, yeah.
We watched Laura, and I didn't actually particularly like Laura. For a long time, I'd seen it twice on two different, kind of separated by a good few years. I'd watched it once when I was like a teenager, and then I watched it again about 3 or 4 years ago when I bought the Eureka release for it. And I didn't really care that much about it. I liked it a lot more this time. Um, I don't know, for some, like Dana Andrews is like the main character, apart from Laura, he's like the detective on her case. Um, and he's like a block of wood. But I just kind of enjoyed him a bit more this time around. That kind of helped me enjoy the film a lot more because the film also co-stars Vincent Price, and we all know around here I'm a Vincent Price fanboy. So it was good that I enjoyed it a lot more this time around. And then the following day, she hits me up with another one. She goes, hey, I was like, all right, Neve, last night was a good pick. What are we going to watch tonight? And she's like, there's one called Double Indemnity. And I was like, well, hell yeah, let's fucking go. Let's watch Double Indemnity.
You
So
like Stockholm syndromed her into liking noir.
well,
No.
it turned out she went onto like a list online. It was like top 40 like old like classic movies or something. And she was just like picking stuff from that sounded interesting to her. And I looked at the list and like there's a lot of good films. I'd seen most of them, and it's like all the kind of normal ones you'd have on there, like Casablanca, The Big Sleep, a few other just like the obvious picks for like black and white movies from like 40s, 50s, some
feel
like It
so-
Hot, The Apartment, stuff like that.
I feel so uncomfortable hearing this story. I feel like this is y'all's bedroom talk. I feel like we should. I feel like we shouldn't be sharing these stories.
No, it's cool. It's cool.
This is the way to get
Um,
Adam excited.
uh, but with Double Indemnity, like I'd seen it again, I saw it a few years ago, and I actually didn't like care about it that much. I thought it was just like it was fine. I was like, I've seen better noir films than this. Why do people talk about this film so much? But I enjoyed it way more this time as well. It's awesome. I rated it 5 stars. It's cliche, but it's only cliche because it's like it invented the cliches.
Yeah.
Barbara Stanwyck is great. So the other Chris from our film club, give a shout out to him. Barbara Stanwyck's awesome in this movie. So yeah, like we haven't watched anything else since then. But just as a funny side note, after we had watched Laura, and then again after we watched Double Indemnity, I was like, "So Neve, what did you think? Did you like the film?" And she goes, "Yeah, they were good. They were good." And I was like, "Okay, if you had a letterbox account, what would you be rating these?" She goes, "I don't know, maybe like 2 or 3 star." It's like, Jesus, you are harsh. Wow, I want to know what you rate 5 star.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's the 5 star?
Well, 5 star be Titanic because that's her favorite movie. But
we'll be talking about that later, just so we know.
Oh, okay. That's a bit.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Beautiful.
So yeah, that's what I watched this week. Anyway, it hasn't been very productive because I'm back to my normal job now, so I don't have as much free time during the day. So it hasn't been as productive. But yeah.
So
But
Adam,
that,
I was going on your stats page because I noticed you just hit 100 different movies, and I was seeing what your milestones and stuff were. Your 50th movie of the year was Scream 5, and your 100th movie of the year was Scream 6. I just wanted you to know that.
Nice.
So
I feel that makes me feel so good about myself. I feel like I'm really in tune with my own body now. Thank you. Scream 5, Scream 6. At the same time, though, I'm not really surprised by how often I watch Scream 5. It was bound to happen at some point. Look, on that note, obviously, like we had said at the start of the episode, this is not a normal episode. We're not going to be talking about specific movies. So if you're tuning in today to hear us shit talk William Friedkin movies, I'm sorry, that's not going to be now. What we are going to do, just as part of a kind of look back, we've all kind of come up with a list of our top 5 and bottom 5 movies that we've watched and discussed on the podcast. We're probably going to do our top 5 first, and then maybe do you want to do our bottom or top 5 first? What's your preferred? Do you prefer to be a bottom or a top?
My vote would be bottom, but I'll go for whatever.
I'm also thinking bottom.
Yeah, that works for me.
How kinky of us. Okay, so we're going to do our bottom 5 first, then we'll do our top 5, and then we'll do something just a little bit different then to kind of wrap up the episode. I was very specific with my lists. I don't know how specific you guys were. I kind of set parameters for myself. I'm not including any movie that I saw prior to the podcast. So if we rewatched it for the podcast, or I'd seen it before it was chosen for the podcast, I'm not counting it because I feel like there's no point in me talking about how much I like Vertigo. We all know that. So that was my parameters. You guys don't have to follow that. It's completely up to you. I just wanted to let you guys know, just in case you're wondering, hey, why didn't you include such and such a movie? That's the reason why.
I did that by accident, just looking at my list.
Cool.
Same. I didn't want to talk about anything I'd already seen.
Perfect. So we all followed we all knew the assignment. So that's good. Anyone want to start with our bottom 5?
So I will start just because technically I only have 4, and that's because one of my picks has 3 movies in it. I really just want to give a shout out to how much I hate Cock 2 in every sense of the word. And I feel like I'm not the only one who picked him, so I wanted to go ahead and throw that one out.
So
I'm right there with you, brother.
Blood of a Poet, Orpheus, and Testament of Orpheus are the movies in question, right?
Yes. I think I almost sort of thought one was okay. I couldn't even tell you which one that was now. So
that would be Orpheus. I can tell you for a fact that would be the middle one, Orpheus, the one that's like a normal movie for most part. Yeah, that one I don't hate it. I have a little bit of time for it, but the other 2, no, they can go fuck themselves.
Yeah, so Chris, very interesting. Honestly, it's a fun episode to like listen to, I'm sure, because it's us more bewildered than anything. But yeah, if somebody were going to ask me to pick a movie that would describe almost everything I hate about movies, it would be one of these films. I don't know which one, but it would be one of them.
Which is so
Probably
funny
Blood of a
because
Poet.
like you're very generous to movies. Like there can be something in the theaters which is like really bad, but you'll play, yeah, I had fun with it. It's 3.5 stars. And like
I
you,
feel like
but
this is a
like
reference that I gave Wonder Woman 84 3.5 stars recently.
for example. Uh but yeah, man, the pretentious stuff I know gets under the skin. I think we maybe well actually I'll wait till I go, but keep going, then I'll have something to say to that because the way that I pick movies is not based off stuff I love, so I don't mind the hate. It's a discovery for me as well.
So I didn't feel bad. Like I was like, yeah, at least Chris didn't see these movies first
Yeah,
before he picked
yeah,
them.
yeah. So is that your top four, just John Cocktail? Because I think we
Are we doing like one at a time? Like each go through each one? Okay.
Yeah, go through all
I
of yours.
misunderstood
Yeah,
because I'm dumb.
that's
Okay,
okay.
so from there I had that. I actually did end up picking one of my own, which I also had a rule for myself for my top that I would not choose anything that I chose, which worked out because I saw most of the stuff I had chosen anyway. But I went ahead and put Battle Heater on here. As fun as that movie is, I would never rewatch it, ever.
Oh, oh.
Um, Deathbed, The Bed That Eats is much better.
I
It's a
would agree
much
with
better
that
film.
one. Much better film.
And
It's
then
it's kind of
actually,
similar to the episode we just did with the Mate movies, right? There
yes,
was one that was just clearly better than the other. They were similar in terms of style, but like in terms of like they were both shit, but like one was better at being shit.
there was like this, like both of them are creative, but there was like I don't know, when it's a low budget creativity, I'm just going to be a lot more into it. Like there was obviously like no budget for Deathbed, so like I appreciate that one a lot. Battle Heater, I guess, had some sort of budget. I'm not gonna say it was a big budget, but I think it was better than the $20 that Deathbed had.
Yeah, I mean, Deathbed somehow won on atmosphere. I don't know how they did it. They created something that was like fully unique.
I told you we discussed this on the episode, right?
Yeah,
That scene where the bed eats the bucket of chicken
Hmm.
is cinema. It is, and I'm not being ironic here. It is. There's no other media format that could convey that in the same
Yeah,
way that cinema does. That
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
that is peak cinema. I'm telling you.
and I'm really that's the best part about the format that we changed to is I could choose both of those movies. So glad that one made the list. Battle Heater, yeah, I wouldn't recommend that one unless you just kind of want to have fun with it. The other two were actually real early picks because that was when we had a lot less choice, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
One of them is Last Year at Marienbad, which is like statistic that has consistently
Boo!
stayed in my least favorites for
That's
so
so
long.
good.
I knew that was coming.
Mulholland Drive is it was the other one we did, and just in comparison, it is nothing. So I think that was what we did. That's when we did Mulholland Drive, right?
It was, yeah, because I called the
Yeah,
episode last year in Mulholland Drive.
that's what it was. Yeah, yeah. So that was that one, and then it wouldn't be me unless I chose the movie that we actually paired with probably the best movie we've ever done on this podcast, which was when we did Night of the Hunter. We also did this little French film called Fat Girl.
No.
I did
Did
not
we
realize
actually pair that?
until Chris made the list that we did those two movies together.
That is we made people sit through 40 minutes of Fat Girl before we talked about it. That is a disgrace. We are a disgrace.
Well,
Like
to be fair, it was 10 minutes of suntan lotion discussion.
That's true.
it's still the only thing I remember about that movie.
That's impossible. You remember the ending. Come on.
Yeah, because it pisses. I barely remember it. I remember more. It just pisses me off than anything else. But those are mine. Since I cheated with Cocteau, I didn't put 5 like other ones. So yeah, those are my 5 or 7, whatever it is.
That's awesome. Adam, do you want me to take middle?
I don't mind. Whatever you want to do, I can go next if you prefer.
You can bumper if you want. You can do your worst and best at the same time. So I have probably not fair, but going in order of when we did them. Fantastic Planet. I'm not gonna say it's a bad movie, but like it's not my kind of movie.
It's
Like I
I'll
have
say it then. It's a bad movie.
okay, fine. I just can't get there. And it's funny because Def Crocodile has put out some movies that kind of have a similar vibe as Fantastic Planet, to be totally honest, but I like the stories better than what they put out. I feel like the animation they found has more kind of better stories and just better writing and more interesting. Um, then that was in April of 21, which is it's kind of crazy to me that we've been doing this so long. Then a movie called Palm Beach Story was a few months later, and I laughed a little bit. Palm Beach Story is the one with the Wiener King, right? With that millionaire that
Yeah, that
It
film
has the most
sucks.
confusing ending in cinema history because
It's
I
so dumb.
missed the opening credits.
yeah.
I was getting something, so when the end happened, I was so confused. That's all I remember
Yeah.
about it.
That's right. That's right. That was a big part. But even without the ending, I just didn't care about any of the characters at all. Like I've never hated all the leads more in a movie. And maybe that was the point, but like they were just all bad people,
No,
selfish
we
people.
watched a great movie with that. That's when we watched Wolf's Hole, which was awesome.
Yeah. Well, this is the funny thing about the old format, right? Because it was just sort of like, okay, let's go look at the last 3 or 4 weeks of Film Club and find 2 movies that we want to talk about. I'll come back to the one that in just a minute, but then we're going to skip down to June of 22, where we get to A Cure for Wellness. Sorry, Zach, but
That movie is awesome.
I couldn't get there. There was interesting parts about it, but I mean, look, happy to seen it. Right. Couldn't get there. And then speaking of Neil Jordan, um, which made a fantastic movie in Mona Lisa, um, what in the world was The Company of Wolves? How is that like this beloved horror anthology movie? The movie's
Yeah, I mean, I,
ass.
I I admit I actually didn't care for it either. It just worked way too well with the other one
Yeah.
that I couldn't avoid not picking it.
Funny enough, Valerie in a Week of Wonders, right? It was
Yeah.
that kind of fantastical sort of thing. But like, how is that movie so? But like every time Scream, because I'm on the Vinegar Syndrome Discord now, so it's like a lot of horror fans, right, on it. By
Mhm.
the way, Zach, you should join. Adam, I won't subject you to that because they just talk about really, really intense horror movies and they make jokes about the Serbian film and stuff. So it's a wild crowd. Um, but like they love it. Like there's a lot of people that love that movie. I just don't get it. It's bad.
I mean, I think it's just because it has such a unique atmosphere. Like I'll even give an example of what I watched last night. I watched Joel Schumacher's Phantom of the Opera. My girlfriend wanted to watch that last night because she loves that movie. The
hmm
movie is not great, but it's got like a hell of an atmosphere and set design, and
Okay.
that's where I get it. Like there, it's unique. It's unique in itself.
I guess unique doesn't always equal good, but I'll go with it. And then I'm gonna say number 5. It's not that I dislike the movie as much as I like to talk shit about it. It's not that I dislike Vertigo, but it was my most disappointing movie we've seen
Like
because
I just want to go over some of the movies we've had to watch for this podcast that you chose to ignore to talk about Vertigo. We watched Lady Killers,
yeah,
Revengeance.
yeah.
I'm actually looking through them now.
Wait, Coen Brothers Lady Killers would have been on my list, but the original Lady Killers was fun.
it's it's there.
Was it though? I don't
Yeah,
think
it's
it
fun.
was.
I mean, it's fun. It's cute. It's like a little, it's a sleepy little comedy. It's not like amazing, but it's cute. It's like thing, some Saturday morning cartoon sucks or something. Like I guess, but it's just cute. Revengeance is yeah, I probably hated Revengeance the least out of the whole film club because it's become like a meme status on our Discord, right? Where we kind of play on the film club. That movie's achieved meme status. I
Was
think
that
I
the other
probably
Chris's pick too, or was that some
yeah,
whose
yeah, yeah,
pick
yeah.
was that?
No, of course. It's a wrestling movie. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I probably hated it the least. Um, it's not that I disliked Vertigo. I just, even after we talked about it for an hour and a half, whatever it was, I just don't see how it's the top 5 movie of all time. Like, there's no way. There's no way.
I mean, you can't really pay attention to sight and sound when they pick the movie where a prostitute cleans her house for 4 hours is the number one movie of all time. You can't pay attention to that. But Vertigo is a top 5 film of all time. I will say that. So they're
Yeah,
correct.
pay attention to me and Zach.
Yeah.
Not these heady lists. Pay attention to
Yeah.
us.
We'll get into our top 10 list later. Vertigo wouldn't touch the movies that I put in my top 10 or top 20. Like, it doesn't hold a flame to those. But maybe top 250, maybe.
Urge to Kill Rising.
So anyways,
I know we probably talked about this in the episode. Adam, where does Vertigo rank in your Hitchcock?
As in, like, well, the answer will become obvious when I tell you my top 10 later, if you want.
Oh, okay. Then we'll just wait then. I was sitting here, I was trying to sit here and remember. I was like, because I know you simp for Hitchcock quite a bit. So I was like, I'm trying to remember if that's
probably like my favorite director, or at least definitely in top 3 anyway.
Yeah. And then Chris, what is a good Hitchcock film to you?
I really like The Lady Vanishes.
Okay, that was not one I expected, but I respect it.
Yeah, I don't mind Lady Vanishes. Pretty good film.
39 Steps. It's good.
Which one? Didn't they do that movie twice?
Hitchcock only did it once, though.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I couldn't remember if he did the original.
I feel like if I had his filmography up, I'd find. I mean, I like Hitchcock. The reason why I like to give it so much shit with y'all is because of how much you love it. I mean, it's a good movie, right? Like, if someone that doesn't like movies or is like trying to get into movies comes up and asks me to watch a Hitchcock movie, like, I'll recommend it, right? Like, I mean, it's a good movie. I do it just for dramatic effect because I like to get a rise out of you. Yeah, but I mean, like, I get it. It's, it's beautifully shot. There's just not enough. I just don't really resonate with the story as much as I wanted to, I guess. But I get why people like it.
Well, I guess we need to hear what if Adam has any hot takes with his bottom 5.
So my bottom 5, funnily enough, all the picks were picked by somebody named Chris. Pure coincidence. I actually struggled to pick only 5. We've watched some terrible movies together during our time. So I actually struggled. I struggled more with my bottom 5 than I did with my top 5, which kind of says a lot. 2 were kind of recent, like Hell of the Living Dead, Flesh of the Living Dead, whatever you call it. Like, whatever way you square it, it's a bad movie. I realize now I probably could have put Battle Heater in here instead. Probably deserves it more, because if I had to choose which one to watch again, I'd probably choose the Hell of the Living Dead or Flesh of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
So we can switch out Hell of the Living Dead for Battle Heater now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, get that out of your list.
This bottom 5 from Adam.
Yeah, like they're pretty. Like, again, we're talking about bad movies here.
Whoa.
Yeah. Next one we have another sort of recent enough one, French Can.
I forgot about French Can. I forgot about that movie.
I hated it so much. It's so bad, and it's just icky and fake, and just everything I don't like about movies. Especially that era of movies, just everything I don't like. Another one kind of recent, Graveyard of Honor, but the Takashi Miike version particularly.
Boo, bad take.
Sucks. Movie's so bad. Awful movie. Next one, Sigourney Weisen, aka Sigourney Weaver. Awful. Jeez,
I knew
that film is bad.
I'm surprised you didn't say that too, Zach.
I'm surprised it hasn't come up. Yeah, I'm surprised I'm the first one to bring it up.
I didn't remember it enough to to even talk about it. I don't remember anything about that movie.
It's just, you are better off watching paint dry than watching that film, or go watch grass grow, and you're like, it's more exhilarating than that film. And then lastly, we've talked about it. It's the meme film Revengeance. It's just terrible. But it's worse than being terrible. It's terrible and it's offensive. So yeah, it's the worst film we've seen, purely on the basis that not only is it bad, but it's also very offensive. And like, it doesn't have the get out clause to say, oh well, we were made in the 60s, times were different, man. This film is like pretty new and it's offensive. So yeah, so that's my bottom 5. But some of the ones that Zach said I also could have had on my list also, to be honest.
Quick shout out to quick shout out to an interview we just did. So the interview that just popped up with Vili Lada from Video Talk.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to hear a funny story about an offensive movie, he gets into one of Herschel Gordon Lewis's first movies, and he describes it as one of the most offensive things he's ever seen. It's a nature documentary about Black people making love. And he's like, the whole time his jaw was just down. He was like, what am I watching? It's a great story. And the movie, yikes, is a horrible piece of cinema history. So anyways, just a cheap way to get a plug in. But when you said offensive and bad, that came to mind. It's a really good story.
You know, I did want to say that, Adam, you should be very thankful for Cock 2, because that's the whole reason that I forgot to put Goddard anywhere on my list.
Look, I think we can all objectively say that those Cocktail movies were way worse than any of the Goddard movies we watched.
I mean that's fair.
But
But I
there's
actually
no
was like, oh
question.
yeah, I actually got through. I don't did I how many French New Wave did I actually name? Did I name any?
You didn't name
Oh,
any.
does Cock 2 count as French New Wave?
No,
No.
he's prior to that.
Mhm.
And then
Poetic realism.
yeah, so I think I avoided it, even though there's definitely none on my top either.
So
So do we want to do
into
reverse
top
order or
five.
the same order we just did for best?
I don't mind. We can do reverse if you guys want.
Yeah.
Sure.
Let's do it.
So my top five. Funnily enough, all of my top five they're actually all film club films. I'm pretty sure. From back when we were doing film club ones, and it's not because I haven't like loved anything that we've watched, in the last year or whatever. I just, a lot of these films just kind of became instant classics for me, and also the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not picking anything that I'd seen prior, so that ruled out a couple of movies that were picks by us, but I had already seen them, prior to us talking about them. So in no particular order, but I'll just go with the list I have here. I went with Soleil O. That really great film. Sort of like French African film. Just incredibly creative filmmaking. The story really resonated with me. It was surreal in all the right ways, but it packed a punch as well. So really, really interesting film. The next one, I have the Wim Wenders film, The American Friend.
Oh, cool. That was awesome. Yeah.
With Dennis Hopper and that German actor whose name has just escaped me. Yeah, great film. Obviously, me, I like my noirs. So, this kind of German neo-noir was right up my alley. Really, really great film. Number 3, I had Ghost Dog. So again, I just thought Ghost Dog was just really cool. It's a really cool movie. It was fun to watch. Definitely be one that I would rewatch. Number sort of 2 on my list is the Kiyoshi Kurosawa film Cure. That is just so good. It's just one of the best sort of horror films of the last, I don't know, it came out in the 90s, right? So what, the last 30 odd years or whatever. Insanely good film. Really, really tense. The acting from the lead characters is great. Great story. It's just an all-time just great film. I really enjoyed Cure. And then number 1, I put Xiao Wu, aka Pickpocket.
Wow, yeah.
That Jia Zhangke film, who I haven't liked any of his other movies that I've watched, funnily enough. But yeah, Xiao Wu just hits different. Great film. Yeah, very kind of similar stylistically to like Wong Kar-wai, which obviously was a big plus for me. And it's stayed up like in like the kind of list that I curated for a long time that I haven't updated in a while, of like my ranked list of the film club films that we've watched. That's always been like consistently in my top 5, since we've watched it, really. So yeah, those would be my top 5 anyway.
I noticed that 2 of your favorites were in the same episode.
Were they? Which 2?
Zhao Wu and The American Friend.
They were the same episode?
9.
Nice.
Yeah.
It was a good episode then.
Yeah, the only thing you didn't name, we also did Panique or Panic or however you want to, I don't know how the French say that. We also did that episode as well, because we were behind on the trying to keep up with the film club back when we did that, and
Right.
that was I think that was a long episode.
Yeah, because it was Fun City interview as well.
Yeah, I don't like Panique that much, so I'm not surprised I missed that part.
What? Just the set design alone.
Set design is amazing. The set design is amazing. I don't actually really care about the rest of the film. This is my hot take for Panique. Any Panique fans out there? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Panique would be 10 times a better movie if Fritz Lang had directed a remake of it in Hollywood, starring Edward G. Robinson.
Nice.
That's
I mean,
that's my hot take.
A lot of movies would be better with Edward G. Robinson and Fritz Lang working together.
Yep.
I would see that. Oh, Panique was so good. Zhao Wu, just real quick before we move on from that, that turned me on to Zhang Ki. That guy's awesome. Like, have you ever seen Pickpocket?
That is
Platform. Platform.
I was so confused.
No,
I was like,
I haven't seen Platform.
Platform is my favorite. There was another one that we saw with the film club, I think.
Yeah, I didn't
that I
like
liked.
it.
Yeah, I liked it less, I guess, than Zhao Wu. I liked it, but not as much. But then Platform was amazing. Like, I think I still need to see a lot more of his stuff, but I think it was like all the like skills that he showed in Zhao Wu are there, but it's also like a little bit of a bigger, kind of more expansive movie. Goes across China a bit more. I loved it. But yeah, I'm really happy to have found him as a director. And it's interesting because there's a Chinese lady that I work with, as far as like she's actually from mainland China, and then she has a green card here in the US for the last 10 years or whatever for work. And she's not a film buff. Like, she just sort of likes movies in the sense of how people would say, yeah, sure, I like movies. But she knows Zhang Kizia. She's like, yeah, no, he's very famous in China. Like, he's very respected director. So everything he comes out, like, people go see it. So it's cool to get that perspective. Because in my head, he's kind of like an art house type, right?
Yeah, I would have that same viewpoint as well. So that's interesting
Yeah,
to know.
yeah. She's like, no, he's very famous. And I was saying his name so poorly that it took her a minute to understand who I was talking about. But I just struggle with tonal languages in general. But yeah. She was like, hey, he's really popular. Great list though. Going back from the beginning, there was, I kind of want to just quickly say one of the things that I've loved about the film club and then also this podcast is, since the pandemic started, I've seen over 1,000 movies. And although I've always loved movies and been a passionate collector and all those things, I don't know if I've ever sort of seen so many in such a short time. And most of that was because of the pandemic, right? I kind of got in a habit that I was not in before, where I'd try to watch one a night, because there's nothing else to do for 2 years, right? But that I'm so glad I'm in that. Like, I feel like my tastes have changed a lot, and also I've seen so many movies that have helped me understand what my tastes even are, like in a bigger way. So like, there's a bunch of stuff that we've seen that sort of help really shape and like refine my what I like and don't like, and sort of open me up to movies in a way that I thought I was pretty good at, like, understanding, film. But I feel like the last 3 years has been amazing. It just opened me up even more. So the reason I go into this little backstory is early on in the film club, we saw Tampopo, which was just one of those movies for me where I was like, wow, that's a creative way to tell that story. It's cool. Just a cool movie.
Yeah, that one just missed out on my top 5.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's just even if you don't like it, which maybe I can understand if people don't like it, it's a little bit surreal or non-linear. Maybe it's kind of a weird movie, but like, I think nothing else you would admire it after watching it. It has some really, really funny moments, right? Like, it's very easy kind of to watch and accessible, but it's also very artistic and good. I just love it. Death by Hanging was another one. It's so funny, but also very, like, makes a great point. And we had a good discussion on that episode about it. Yeah, so Death by Hanging was another one of those ones early on where I was just like, wow, they can do that. Like, that's cool. And then I'd never seen Night of the Hunter before, so that kind of blew my mind, right? Just, I think the story is good, but the visual storytelling in that movie, you can't beat it. I can't imagine anything topping it. The use of shadows and the use of angles and like the way they create fear out of playing with what's the word like where one character will just like grow in size compared to the other ones, right? Like
The perspective.
perspective, yeah, perspective, just amazing. uh, what a fun movie to watch, and the story is also good. I don't know that it relies so much on having like an incredibly dense story, but for the fact that for what it is, like a dark children's kind of tale, uh, it's also very horrifying, right? And they make it like a level deeper. I really wish Charles Lawton would have directed more.
Honestly, I think I mentioned it in that episode. It has probably, if not my favorite, one of my favorite like shots in any film. It's gorgeous.
Right?
I'm the
Yeah.
same. Yeah, the cinematography is just insane. That I love that scene in when Robert Mitchum and the children's mother are in their bedroom, and it's kind of shot in a way that like the camera is kind of like it's outside the house, but it's inside the house, but it's so far back it almost looks like a stage. And it's just full of shadow, and or Mitchum's kind of like reaching up into the air as he's talking, and it's just there's just so many. There's just you can just talk about like every frame of that film could be talked about as a piece of art. It's just incredible
No,
looking.
totally. Yeah. The one the one that jumps out to me, because I've still only seen it once, so I need to see it again. The one that jumps out to me is when I had a moment where, because it took me a minute to adjust to what was going on because it was different than what a lot of movies I'd seen before. Like it's a very unique way that they kind of tell that story. Um, but there's a moment where he's chasing the kids out of the basement, and they do something with the camera. I don't even know how they pull it off, but they like pull the camera back and his shadow grows as the kids are trying to get out of the stairs. And his shadow, he becomes like a giant, and it becomes almost like special effects. It's such the perspective is so off, and feels so magical, kind of magical realism type, but like that thing. Um, I had that something switched in my brain. I was like, oh, I get what's happening. This movie's amazing. And from then on, I was just like hooked. But like you said, you could probably pull out a handful of frames as some of the most interesting stuff that's ever been done.
Mine
Um,
was always the car one, underwater car. That's always
oh,
my favorite.
yeah, I mean, think about that being in the same movie. That was crazy, right? That they got that shot without any special effects. Amazing.
And if you want to hear us like gush over Night of the Hunter for about an hour, that's episode 6. It was very early. Just
Yeah.
skip the
Fair.
first half.
I was gonna say
Very
fair warning. Yeah, fat girls first.
Then I'll just really quickly say, so that was 3. Investigation of a Citizen Above Suspicion made my list, and one of the reasons it did, I do love the movie, but it also turned me on to Elio Petri. Now I've seen 4 of his movies. That was the first one. And he's sort of become to me like the Italian John Cassavetes. Like he uses volume and pace in very interesting ways from his characters. Um, and he, sort of like Cassavetes, he really is on the nose with his points. Like he's not trying to be subtle with his points, right? For Petri, it's more political activism kind of stuff. It really is not a fan of capitalism. um, but I like the way that he tells stories. I think he's a very good, gifted storyteller. Um, so that turned me on to him. And then the episode where we did Fallen Angels, um, it I know that something we disagree on, Adam, is that I don't love Chunking Express. The characters annoy me a bit, and I find the lead female, I don't find her cute. I find her stalkerish and annoying. Um, but I generally like the idea of Chunking Express, and I think he nailed the characters for me in Fallen Angels. That like I wanted those kind of characters to be in chunking more, or just I like what he. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know about chunking, but I just really like the characters he created for Fallen Angels. And I saw it twice because then I saw it when I was doing the Wong Kar-wai run, um, and the second time it got even better for me. The character he creates, who's deaf, who causes all the trouble, he's just he's hilarious, and he's such a good character. And he has a really, really sweet, tender moment with his dad, and like Wong Kar-wai's ability to kind of switch that quickly. Uh, I love it. Beautiful. Still one of my favorite Wong Kar-wai movies. Although there's a few that ended up above it, but it's top five for sure. Um, then I did something. The last movie I'll talk about is Rainy Dog, just because I want to put a Takashi Miike film on there. I know y'all didn't resonate with it as much as I did, but to me that movie's beautiful and dark, of course, because it's a Miike film. But I love it very much, and it was really fun to talk. That was a fun episode. Throwdown, the Johnny Toe movie, and then Rainy Dog, to talk about those together. That's episode 48. That's a really fun one to listen to. And Zach, after you go, I did something that's kind of like just for fun. If y'all don't have this ready, we don't have to do it. But I highlighted two of my favorite overall episodes of just from a discussion standpoint. I don't know if it's okay if I sneak those in or you want me to do it later. Um,
If you get while you go, I might be able to figure out what my favorite would be. I have a couple that I might would pick. I'd have to think about it very quickly.
okay. Yeah, well, not to put you on the spot, but I just, as I was going through this list, there's two that jumped out to me where the discussion. I mean, I've had a lot of fun on a lot of these discussions, even if, like you said, the John Cocteau episode was a fun discussion. But the two, the deathbed and the battle heater episode, I think is a lot of fun to discuss. They're kind of silly movies, but I had a lot of fun with that. And then also, I think my favorite one, uh, in terms of both movies being ones that I loved and loving the discussion, was a Hitchhiker episode and Mikey and Nikki. So that would have been episode 72. Um, it's just I don't know, I just had a lot of fun with both of those.
I'm actually like taking a quick glance. I will see by the time if I pick one, but I probably have at least one or two. But I will, before I do that, I will go ahead and get into my
Yeah.
favorite movies we've watched. I'm going to cheat a little bit because that's just how I'm going to keep doing this whole podcast. So the first pick I wanted to do was really two that came from the film club, and I kind of put them together because they're the only two on the list that came from the film club. But it was kind of hard to decide between which one. So the first one in the film club that I really loved was Woman in the Dunes, which is still probably,
Oh
to
yeah.
me, the best movie the film club ever did of something I haven't seen. I think that movie is just unique in about every way that I don't think there's anything quite like it. I think the discussion we had with it was also great. Just a really interestingly dark movie that I really, really need to buy for my Criterion collection that keeps getting put to the back burner for some reason. But the other one I put with it was Pandora's Box, which I also think was really good. It's one where I still struggle to get into like silent films, like besides the horror ones. And I mean, this has elements of that, but I struggle a lot. This is one that kind of encouraged me to watch Les Vampires and stuff like that. It let me know that even if a silent movie's long, it could hold my attention better than I thought it could. I just think it's a cool movie. Very, the fascination with the whole like third of that movie that gets into like Jack the Ripper and everything. I just think that's really cool. So that's technically my number 5 pick, is both of those. From there, we'll go to, you mentioned it a minute ago, Chris, The Hitchhiker.
Yeah.
When we did our episode on what was female noir, right? Is what you said that was that? Yeah. That one's just it's an incredibly simple. It is about as simple of a plot as you can get, and I think that is great. I think we even talked about in that episode that you almost feel like, because of how modern things have gotten, you expect there to be some sort of twist, or you expect there, but it is very straightforward. It's very simple, and it's done fantastically because it does well with the simple things. So that one was on there. And I remember when we first watched this one for my number 3, I really thought Adam had finally found me a French New Wave film that I liked. And it turns out that he is not French New Wave, but Le Samurai is awesome. But yeah, he's French and it's around that time, but it's not French New Wave apparently. So still looking for the day. I don't know. There's not a lot I can say. We did Ghost Dog, and I actually don't really care for Ghost Dog that much, so I was glad to get to that one because I know it's an inspiration for Ghost Dog and fun, and I really liked it a lot. I think I've rewatched it since then as well. And then I also have Miami Blues, which we watched very recently.
Oh, cool.
It's just a really cool movie. Like that's kind of a hard one to describe just because it has like a huge cool factor to it. If there's a movie that's not Scarface that kind of feels like Miami, it's definitely Miami Blues. Great character actors doing great work. That's kind of, if you're going to give me like some type of movie like this little action thriller type thing, this is more of what I'd be into. And then the final one is going to be The Day of the Outlaw, when we did our snow western episode. The Day of the Outlaw is just awesome. It's got I tried it with all these. I think the thing is a lot of them have pretty simple stories, and I tend to find myself gravitating towards the simpler the story, typically the better for me. Probably says more about me than anything else, but I like when they're just focusing on the one thing, and it keeps my attention a whole lot better. And Day of the Outlaw has a lot going on in its character work, but its story is incredibly simple, and everyone's going for a common goal. It's definitely one of the best snow westerns. I'd have to go through and say what would be my favorite, but it's probably Day of the Outlaw.
Yeah, Day of the Outlaw was awesome.
And then I guess just to pick one, honestly, just because I've referenced it so many times, I feel like my favorite episode probably is Fat Girl on the Night of the Hunter. It has the one where I get to complain about a movie and one where I get to gush over a movie, so that's always fun time. So yeah,
that was a fun episode too.
Yeah, that was a fun episode. The ones I enjoyed as well was the there was 2 others I enjoyed really a lot. Was the Hitchcock special where we did Shadow of a Doubt and Vertigo. Because I like Shadow of a Doubt a lot, and we actually had a really good discussion about that film. And then also we had the fun then of us trying to figure out how the hell Chris doesn't like Vertigo as much as we do. So I think that episode has 2 good sides to it, because the Shadow of a Doubt stuff, we actually had like a really good engaging conversation on that film, and I really really liked that film. And then obviously the Vertigo stuff is just fun. And then I also enjoyed the Last Year Marion Bad and Mulholland Drive episode. Again, because we can kind of hear Zach frustrated at a movie that I really liked. There's obviously a lot to talk about with different interpretations of the movie and stuff. And obviously, again, and then the Mulholland Drive stuff's great because all 3 of us are just loving that movie, and again talking about interpretations and everything. So those would be like a few episodes that kind of stand out in my mind as just ones that I really enjoyed.
And the whole episode's good, but I guess I would also shout out the Harlan County, USA, and the Salil O. Is that how you say it? Just Salil. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just because I have a lot of connection with that part of America for Harlan County, and I really enjoyed our discussion for that one. That's one of, what have we done? Like 2 or 3 documentaries that were for Film Club.
I think we did 3: Black Panthers, Harlan County, and Ganesh Shelter. Are the 3
okay.
my head.
Yeah, I can't think of any more off the top of my head. But
I know in the Film Club we also watched the Harvey Milk one, but I don't think we actually. I think that was after we stopped doing podcast picks.
And then original cast album, I can't even remember that movie.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's right.
That should have been on my bad list.
No, it's the one where it's sort of like backstage they're rehearsing for a play.
Yeah, I sort of remember that maybe. I don't know. I feel like I was real bored during it.
Yeah, I wouldn't pick that as if I was gonna pick a movie for you, Zach, that wouldn't be the first one I would choose. No. But I liked it actually. But yeah, that was a. Yeah, I'm guessing y'all didn't by your reaction.
No.
I don't remember like it from what I do remember.
So just before we kind of move into our, our last sort of segment, I guess, of this episode, obviously, Chris, you're the one who does all of our interviews. Sometimes me and Zach sit in, but it's rare. You're very much the one who heads that up. Is there any sort of shout outs for particular interview episodes that you want to give a shout out to before we went to our last segment?
Oh, cool. Yeah, I put a few down. So, like we kind of talked about, I'm very like I use this word humbled, but I honestly I feel this way. Like it's crazy to me that the people that we sit down and talk to. The fact in the first year we were able to speak to Aero Video. We've spoken to Indicator now. There's a lot of really heavy hitters that we've been able to bring on the podcast, right? Um, so I love the fact that people are saying yes. Um, the ones that stand out to me, I think just going with my personality, or I should say Vinegar Syndrome as well, as far as the heavy hitters that have come on, just to call them out, especially because we've had 2 guests from Vinegar Syndrome between Justin and then Curtis talking about New York Ninja. Now Radiance will become a major one, which is fun. We have 47 episodes total. Isn't that crazy? 47 interviews. It's more than I thought. But the ones that stand out to me, I'll just go quickly through them. Arrow Video, that conversation with James. Have you all ever gone back and listened to that episode? Like, not to sound like a narcissist, but I went back and listened to it. James is awesome. I kind of want to bring him back on. Like that dude opens up more, and he's such a wealth of knowledge. I feel like now that I'm a little bit more confident as an interviewer, I almost want to talk to him again and dig into some of that stuff he says a little more, because it was so early on. I think the interview could have been better by me just asking follow-up questions and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, he just he's just awesome. I love that guy, and he's so nice too. He's from Texas, so shout out to Texas people, even though he lives in London now.
That was our 9th interview, by the way. I just checked.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it was still in 2021. Crazy. One of the ones I'm most proud of is Lisa Petrucci from Something Weird doesn't do interviews that much. But the Jared from Mondo Macabro knows her. They both live in Seattle. And after we did the Mondo episode, I was like, man, I'd love to get Lisa on. Would you be open to an email intro? And she agreed. So like that was cool. There's been a few episodes where people really don't like to talk on camera. So the fact that we're an audio podcast has helped. And that's one of them. And that episode is just very sweet. She just seems like such a nice person. Like I really liked her. And she's hilarious. Like the stories she has are awesome. She's the curator of all these crazy movies from Something Weird Video, and she's a perfect person to do it. Kind of in that same vein, I felt like when we spoke to Agfa, I was sitting in a room with my people. We talked about Bad Pussy continuously for the whole movie, the whole episode, I mean, and just yucking it up with those two, but also seeing how hard they work. I really love that interview. And we wound up talking for like an hour after we shut the recording off. So if I ever have a baby shower, I'll invite them. They're like my people now. I don't know if they feel that way. And then I feel like I have to call out, just from a purely fun standpoint, episode 88 is with the Mike Leader. And we missed an opportunity, by the way, because our 88 films episode was episode 86. So
Yeah,
we
we
could
should
have,
have switched them around.
but Mike Leader and Arne Venema, who do a lot of commentaries, and they have cool jobs. Like Mike Leader is, he does a casting director. So like if the new Mission Impossible movie wants to go into China, like he's the one that finds cast for the movies. So that, they have really interesting day jobs, but just bleed passion for Hong Kong cinema and Asian cinema. And so that was a really fun one for me. and they're just funny people too. I had a lot of fun with that one. And then lastly, I'll just call it Radiance Films because it's a rare moment to catch something like Arrow before it becomes Arrow, or Criterion before it becomes Criterion. You know, like I think we'll look back in 3 to 5 years and Radiance is going to be up there. So I'm just proud of having that before he had a release up. So yeah.
Awesome. So to wrap up the episode, obviously, like we've been talking about our favorite films, our least favorite films, just our experience on the podcast. And, we feel like, as listeners over the years, you've gotten to know kind of our personalities, what kind of films, I like, or Zach likes, or Chris likes, or, whatever. And, we all have letterbox pages and stuff. You can come and follow us if you don't already, to kind of keep up with what we're watching and stuff. One sort of thing we thought would be just a fun idea to kind of wrap up the episode. We've all kind of put together a list of like our top 10 films of all time. So obviously nothing specific to the podcast or anything like that. So each of us is going to run through those before we wrap things up. Anyone have a preference for going first or last or anything like that? I'll take that as a no.
No, I'm good. However order we want to do it. I was muted. I was eating.
Well, look, I'll go first then in that regard. So, I'm going to talk about my 10, but I'm just going to give like a quick breeze through, like kind of like 25, just like from 25 to 11, just kind of quickly breeze through them because I do have a top 100, but just to breeze through. So 25, Ingmar Bergman's The Passion of Anna. 24, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. 23 and 22, we both watched on the podcast. They're both by Pavlik Pavlikowski. We have Ida and Cold War. Number 21, The Empire Strikes Back. Number 20, School of Rock. Number 19, Harakiri. Number 18, The Guard. Number 17, Before Sunset. Number 16, Doctor Strangelove. 15, Persona. 14, Hot Rod. 13, Goodfellas. 12, Back to the Future. And 11, The Royal Tenenbaums. So that's 25 to 11. Now my top 10. Number 10, we have the Abbas Kiarostami film Where Is the Friend's House, which is the first part of the Coker trilogy. I know we watched Close Up in an episode once upon a time. And I don't think Zach liked it. I don't remember if you liked it, Chris, or if you've gotten to watch a bit of Abbas Kiarostami in general. But he's one of my favorite directors. He'd probably be in like my top 5, if maybe even my top 3 filmmakers. He's just incredible. I love all of his movies. I don't think I've ever seen a movie by him that I didn't like. Whereas A Friend's House was the second film from him that I watched. I'd seen Close Up first just because it's his most like famous or acclaimed or whatever. So I'd seen Close Up first, and then obviously that's such a unique film. I didn't really know what to expect at Where's the Friend's House, but Where's the Friend's, it's just such a simple, sweet movie. Like Chris, you could watch this with your son. It's just a very simple film of a boy's journey to like do good. So the basic premise is that in this village, this boy and his friend is going to flunk out of school because he keeps forgetting to bring his books to school. And, keeps forgetting to do his homework. So when they leave, when the boy gets home, he realizes that he accidentally took his friend's book home from school. So he knows that if he doesn't bring the book to him, he's going to get in trouble the next day for not doing his homework. So he just sets out on his journey to try and find his friend's house in his friend's village to give him his book back. It's just a really sweet, simple story. And it's told really beautifully. It's really life affirming. Just a great film altogether.
Oh, cool.
Number 9 is probably like the weirdest pick that I don't think anyone would call. So I'm a huge fan of the group The Lonely Island, with Andy Samberg and stuff. And they brought a film out a few years ago. I want to say it was around like 2016, called Pop Star Never Stop Never Stopping.
Yes.
This is the funniest film ever made. It's just, it's so good. I love it so much. I like show it to people religiously. There was times where like people, like my friends would come over to my house and I'm like, okay, we're watching this movie just because it's so funny. The songs are so good. The sort of closest film I can equate it to, it's like This Is Spinal Tap. It's like the same vibe as This Is Spinal Tap, but instead it's about a narcissistic pop star played by Andy Samberg. It has so many cameos from like huge artists, pretending to be like doing like, like in documentaries, do like confessionals. They're like, talking about how big of an impact, this stuff was on them. So like you have like interviews with like Ringo Starr and Usher and like all these huge acts, and they're talking about how big of an influence Andy Samberg's character was on them and their career and music and stuff. All the while the music is absolutely terrible. So it's just a really, really funny film. I love it to pieces. I listen to the soundtrack all the time. So that's my number nine. Number eight is the Richard Linklater film Before Sunrise. I had obviously mentioned Before Sunset is also in my top 25, but Before Sunrise, where it all began, just amazing film, so beautiful, so just a romantic film, in every sense of the word. Looks great, so easy to watch. The main performances are amazing from Julie Delpy and Ethan Hawke. So yeah, Before Sunrise, my number eight, great movie. Number seven, which finds its way up my list every year, gets closer and closer. It's going to crack that top five any year now. It's Scream. Scream is amazing. It's so good. It's become my comfort movie now, where like when I'm sick or just when I just want to watch something easy, Scream is like my go-to. I love that movie so much. Love everything about it. Number six, we've brought it up a little bit earlier, Mulholland Drive. One of those films I'm just in awe at it when I watch it, just at the storytelling, the filmmaking, the acting. Naomi Watts is amazing in this movie. It's one of the best performances in cinema history. She's so good in this film. And I think she's just underrated as an actress anyway, in general. But yeah, we obviously have a whole episode dedicated to Mulholland Drive. You can go listen to that if you want to hear more of my thoughts on it. But yeah, it's just an amazing film. Number five, again, we brought it up earlier, much to Chris's chagrin. Chungking Express is my number five. Kind of similar to Before Sunrise. I just find it very, I suppose, not really romantic in the same way that Before Sunrise is, but very rose tinted, very easy to watch. I enjoy the characters. I don't think they're all kind of sweet and cute or anything like that, like you mentioned earlier, Chris. They're definitely very, very flawed characters. But I just enjoy how they interact with each other. The camera work, the way the film is sort of told, the direction from Wong Kar-wai is amazing. Obviously, it was the first film we watched in the film club. When the film club first started, this was week one, and it's just resonated with me ever since. So I've watched it a few other times afterwards, and I always love it. Number four, Blade Runner, the original, Ridley Scott. Again, kind of like Mulholland Drive, I'm just kind of in awe at it. Just the filmmaking, the scope, how well it is, the acting is just, it's just a 10 out of 10 film. There's nothing I can say bad about Blade Runner. It's amazing. It becomes just one of those films I've just rewatched religiously since I was like 16 years old when I first watched it. I just kind of religiously rewatch it. And another film I religiously rewatch because I've watched it probably every year since I was like 14 or 15. Halloween, original, John Carpenter. As perfect of a horror movie you can get. Scream comes close, but Halloween is just perfect. Just nothing bad anyone can say about Halloween. I won't listen to it. Number two, we talked about it a bunch, so I'm not going to dwell on it. Night of the Hunter. Great film. We've already talked a bunch about it, so I'm not going to dwell too much. Number one, to answer your question earlier, Zach, you asked me what my number one Hitchcock movie is. Well, my number one movie is Vertigo.
Okay.
So,
I thought it was, but I couldn't remember right off.
Yeah, that answers your questions. Yeah, Vertigo number one for me. Best film ever made, no matter what Chris Haskell tries to tell you. So yeah, those are my top.
Nice.
Well,
That's a great
I have
list.
a long list. Oh, sorry, Chris.
No, it's a great list. Go ahead, please.
No, I have kind of. I quickly did what Adam did. I'm gonna go through my like 11 through 20. These are actually in no order. This part. These are just ones that almost made the top 10 and just sort of missed out. So, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which I count as one, did not make it. Great achievement. It was very close to making it, but not quite there. Ken Russell's The Devils, Rango, which I consider the greatest animated film ever made.
Nice.
Mad Max Fury Road, Baba, Targets, which thankfully finally got a release, Unforgiven, There Will Be Blood, Barry Lyndon, and The Velvet Vampire are the ones that did not quite make it to my top 10. They were all kind of mixed in there at various points and then got taken off for one reason or another. So I'll go backwards from 10. Adam just talked about it a little bit. There is The Night of the Hunter, which we've talked about plenty on here already, even in an episode not about it. It's a gorgeous movie. It's probably my favorite. It's easily to me the best like 50s horror film, which was kind of a mad part for horror in general was that decade. But I've always seen it as it bridges the gap between the Universal monsters and the slasher films that would come before and after the 50s. Number 9 is what I would actually consider the greatest like technical achievement in film, and I think Adam's about to be wife would agree with me, which is Titanic. Just the scale of Titanic and what Cameron was able to accomplish. Like, yeah, it has plenty of memes around it. If it was made today, there'd be plenty. And there's things to goof on with the movie, but I say that as someone who watches that movie at least once a year. Those things to goof on make it even a better experience. Like, you talk about the door, you talk about the melodrama. It's just such a awesome film altogether. I adore Titanic. I think it's the best thing Cameron has ever done and probably will ever do in his career. And it's just weird who it came from, a guy who made Terminator and Aliens and True Lies, to make a historical romance film and do as well with it as he did.
Don't forget the Transformers movies. He made those too.
Of course, yeah, can't forget that.
I'm so glad you said it.
From there, we'll go to Mel Gibson's Apocalypto. I had Fury Road in my like top 20, and I've always considered this like, of course, this happened before Fury Road, but the way I like to describe it is it's Fury Road on foot. This film, like this is one of these films where I don't even need to read like the subtitles, not because I've seen it so many times, because it is just so well shot for storytelling that the subtitles are just completely unnecessary. He could have went complete without it, and this movie would be just as easy to follow. And it comes down to its simplicity and how well it's paced, and how well it's easy to grab onto details, because you have like this forest as this canvas going on, so the characters just stick out so much to be able to learn so much about them just by the way they dress or the way they speak, the way they carry themselves. Fantastic film. This actually was a late inclusion in my top 10, and the reason I reflected more on it was because of the sad recent passing of my favorite author, Cormac McCarthy, who passed away as the time of recording a few days ago. So I had picked No Country for Old Men, which is for a long time, Oh Brother Where Art Thou was my favorite Coen Brothers film. But every time I've watched No Country, it's just like kept going up on the list, and just how well they understood McCarthy as a writer and understood his worldview, but still the Coen brothers still put in their own unique worldview, which they do in every film, and it matches just incredibly well. Of course, the book, it was originally a screenplay that he turned into a novel, so it was, in fairness, it was an easy one to adapt, but they do such a fantastic job with it, and it's one that I probably would say now is my favorite Coen brothers, even though our brother's been there for a long time. From there, we'll go with Sam Peckinpah's Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. Peckinpah was famously had a hard time ever making a film he wanted to make the way he wanted to make it. Alfredo Garcia is one that is completely his own. Everything about it is his personality, what he enjoys doing. And it is a beautiful film because of that. It has probably like one of those complicated like romances that I've seen between two characters, and everything is gray. It's hard to find good or bad within the film. It is a bunch of people trying to do morally what they believe is the right thing to do, which to me is the way to do characters and character studies in film. Go on to number 5. We'll get into stuff that's a little bit more. It's definitely expected for me. So for number 5, it's Toby Hooper's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There isn't a lot for me to say on Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's awesome. It's it really is the landmark for slashers, even though slashers had existed sort of in their own way before, and of course got more popular afterwards, which I'll talk about in a second. But yeah, like when you talk about The Final Girl, you talk about this, a lot of it comes from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Number 4 is going to be Andrei Zulawski's Possession.
Nice.
That's a movie that I remember the first time I watched it like 2 years ago. I gave it an 8 out of 10, and I was like, I really liked it, and I just kept going back to it over and over again. Like I just like a few months later, I throw it on again. A few months later, I throw it on again, and every time I liked it better and better, and now it's in my top 5. It's such. I mean, I know Adam, you had your mixed feelings about his other 2 films. I will say, watch this one. Like when you want to talk about like the way he films this chaotic nature, he does it the best in Possession, and he has the best actors he probably ever had as a director doing that chaotic nature that knew how to pull it off and pull it off extremely well. Number 3 is one that has been number 3. The number 1 through 3 has never changed for me in probably over a decade. Number 3 is going to be Tremors. If I have a real shit day, Tremors is going to go on the TV. It is a movie that I wore out a VHS tape as a kid, rewatching it over and over and over again. It is the greatest horror comedy ever made. There isn't one close. People bring up Evil Dead 2, and they're incorrect. It is Tremors. The script is tight. The effects are amazing. I mean, every like practical effect measure you've ever heard of was probably done in Tremors, and it was done extremely well. It's just a bunch of creative people making what should be a really stupid movie, but making it as close to a masterpiece as anyone can get. It's awesome. And then the top 2 are both going to be John Carpenter films, and they're the obvious ones to pick. So number 2 is going to be is going to be The Thing. It's The Thing. It's going to be the greatest body horror film ever made. It's the greatest snow horror ever made. It's one of the greatest horrors ever made. This would be the top of any director's like list. But John Carpenter's so good, he created something a little bit better just before, which is his film Halloween. There isn't a better film, and I'm with Adam. I will fight anyone. There is no better film than Halloween. So that is my top 10.
Okay. Awesome. Wow. I think like this, but the list that y'all have said, and then probably what's about to come here is another thing that I love about the podcast. Like, we just to get meta for a second before I dive in, I love the fact that we all come from different kind of tastes and background, and I think it really makes the podcast better. So I love doing this with y'all, and I'm happy that I get to end on the correct top 10.
Oh, thankfully.
Okay, so quick rundown. I mean, all the way down to like 50 on my list is 5-star movies, so this is really tough. But 25 to 11, I have Sanjuro. I know that everyone hates me for putting Sanjuro above Yojimbo. The reason I do it is because Sanjuro is funny and it's great, and people should give it a chance. Don't think about the legacy of the movie, just watch them side by side, and I think more people would like Sanjuro if they gave it's such a funny movie. It really shows Kurosawa's humor, and I don't think a lot of his movies do that. He was just goofing around and having a good time, and I love Sanjuro. 24 is Rawu Pickpocket. 23 is Mikey and Nikki. 22 is Taste of Cherry, Adam. So there's your answer if I've seen more Kurosami. 21 Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. We just saw it on a rewatch. I forgot how much I love that damn movie. It's just flawless. Very, very beautiful movie. 20 Spinal Tap. 19 Amadeus. I don't think it's possible to make a better historical biopic than that. I love all their choices there. 18 is And the Ship Sails On, the Fellini movie. 17th is Bergman's Seventh Seal. 16 is Riki-Oh, the story of Ricky, which almost beat out number 15, which is Seven Samurai, but I had to give Seven Samurai the nod there. 14 is Do the Right Thing from Spike Lee. I just, it's like, again, it's something I saw recently as I was going through the Criterion movies. There won't ever be a better movie that encapsulates the racial tension in the US. He nails it. And it's a nuanced look at it. And like, he doesn't paint the white folks in the movie as like pure evil. It's nuanced, and just like racial stuff in the US, it's all complicated. And he nails it. I love it. It's just a fantastic. 13 is Night of the Hunter, which I was shocked it wasn't in my top 10. I love that movie a lot. 12 is A Woman is a Woman. And 11 is Platform from Janki. So 10, I had to put a Lubitsch movie in there because of how much I love his films. So it's To Be or Not to Be from Lubitsch, Ernst Lubitsch, which is the story of the. Imagine in 1942, a European movie coming out, just lampooning Hitler, just like belittling him every chance they get for 2 hours or whatever it is. Just so like brave, and it's also funny and amazing. 9 is Once Upon a Time in the West. Sorry, Zach. I know that's the one, Leonie, you don't like, but it's just, the movie's so cool. I could watch it again right now. Speaking of Iranian directors, not Kurosami, but Deaf Crocodile put out a bunch of movies from a guy named Shahram Mokri. And I want to do everything I can to get people to see his movies. He just is a brilliant guy. All of his movies are just extremely creative with the way that he handles the one take filmmaking kind of technique. I don't think it's cheesy at all. And Fish and Cat is just stunning. It's a 2013 movie, and it follows people. It's a slasher movie without any actual killing until near the end, but just amazing. And the way that it ends is kind of quirky and funny and unexpected. But yeah, it jumped all the way up to number 8. I'm a sucker for Power of the Human Spirit, so Ikiru is number 7 for me by Kurosawa. I know this is cheating a little bit, but the Decalogue series from Kieślowski is number 6. It's dropped a bit from number 4 position, but I just rewatched it again recently, and damn, it's just powerful. Just some of the best writing. It's ironic that I don't like Vertigo as much as the one I'm about to say, because I think the Red Shoes really wins on visuals, but it also wins for me on, like, I don't know how Powell and Pressburger were able to pull off the effects that they did in that movie. Like something as simple as the ballerina jumping up in the air and landing in fully tied ballerina shoes. Just I remember just watching it because they pulled that off in 1948. I was like, damn, like it's amazing. And it's also a beautiful movie, probably the best use of Technicolor ever. But yeah, like it's one where the visuals were so strong that I just couldn't stop watching it. And it's a really engaging story. So that's number 5 for me. We all have kind of a comfort film on our top 10. So number 4 for me is Action USA. It's hilarious. I don't know. Watch it. If you haven't seen it, just watch it and tell me it's not a top 10 movie. I'm a sucker for, my top 3 includes 2 movies where it's writers writing about how hard it is to write movies. So I guess I'm a sucker for those kind of scripts. Number 3 is Charlie Kaufman in a Spike Jonze directed movie adaptation. So Zach, I snuck a Nick Cage movie in my top 3.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. But everything about that movie is flawless. Like every decision that Spike Jonze makes with Kaufman is the right decision, I think. And if we ever want to have a special episode where we just talk about Spike Jonze movies, that might be my week, so we can have an excuse to talk about adaptation. Because I really liked this is one of the first movies when I saw it in theaters that I left and I just wanted to like pick it apart. And my friend who watched it with me We had a 45-minute drive home from the theater it was playing at, and we talked about that movie for 45 minutes. I went into his house. We talked about it for another hour or more. And then the next time we saw each other, a few days later, we talked about it for another hour or two. There's just so many details in adaptation. And he does so much with the characters and creativity with the plot. I just could go on and on, but love that movie. My favorite Kurosawa movie and one of my favorite movies ever is Rashomon. And it's basically, it's so high for me on the list because there wasn't a lot of stuff. Kurosawa is famous for really loving John Ford, and a lot of his more famous movies are influenced by John Ford, you can tell, or Western literature. But this movie is just something it really hadn't been done a lot, right? Where you have 3 different perspectives of the same event. And by the end, it's almost like nowadays we have all these true crime documentaries that get into like who is really guilty, and like sort of that idea of the way that the evidence is portrayed by somebody on the evidence stand can really influence your opinion as a juror. And this is one of the first examples of that, I believe, if not the first. And it was a narrative film based off of a book that did this, and I think it's amazing. The execution is perfect, and there's even a twist all the way to the end as far as the characters. So very good. And then my number 1 movie of all time, I can't imagine anything ever surpassing this, is 8.5. I think generally Fellini is somebody who really resonates with the way that I see the world. His characters are complex. He loves showing the flaws of his characters very openly, and he makes it almost appealing. Like he presents flaws in a way that I think draws us closer to his characters, because if we're honest with ourselves, a lot of us share the same negative traits that he puts into his characters, right? Whether it's thoughts or actions. I think there's a lot of similar. I think he understands humanity very well. And it's also a movie about how hard it is to make a movie. So like I said, I guess I'm biased towards that stuff. But yeah, 8.5 will be number 1 for me for a long time, unless they make an Action USA 2.
Well,
Awesome.
if Night of the Hunter had just made it into Chris's top 3, we would have all had one in the top 10 the same.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised that it's not in my top 10. And I'm also realizing now on Letterboxd that I didn't put that I liked it. I gave it 5 stars, but didn't click that I liked it. So I need to fix that.
Sacrilege.
Yeah, just a clerical error. But yeah, there's a lot of good movies out there. like as much as I love Night of the Hunter, I could go through, if we had 3 hours to do this, I would go through my top 50, and I would make a staunch defense for all of these. Like there's a lot of fun out there. Watch more movies, That's my takeaway.
Yeah, that's the only downside with having to be trying to limit ourselves just for time, because I don't get to tell you guys why Avengers Infinity War is the 44th best film of all time. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. Well, look, we're going to wrap things up there anyway. I hope listeners you've enjoyed this episode. Obviously, it's a little bit different to what we normally do, but when we hit the 100 mark, we were always going to do something a little bit special. As I said, we'll have a couple of episodes in between by the time we get back to do, with the 3 of us to talk about those Friedkin movies that Zach picked out for us. So we will be back with those. We'll obviously fill the gaps one way or another between this episode and that episode. But in the meantime, once again, thank you to all the listeners. Thank you to all the guests we've had over the last 100 episodes. Thank you to my co-hosts, Chris and Zach, for always being ready to have great conversations about these movies that we watch together. And here's to another 100 episodes.